Hey there, everyone. This is Dave Dubeau with another episode of the Property Profits Podcast. And today, my special guest is Jared Hope. Jared, how are you doing today?
I'm pretty unbelievable today.
That's fantastic. So Jared is a fellow, what would we call him? Thompson Okanagan person based in Kelowna. I'm based in Kamloops. But Jared's very, very interesting. His portfolio, his focus area is in Alberta, specifically around Edmonton. And Jared is definitely the real deal when it comes to an active professional real estate investor or real estate entrepreneur. I believe you've done over 360 transactions. Is that right, Jared? Something around that?
Yeah, I bought and sold about 360, 370, and then we hold 150 plus.
150 plus. And you got started in 2003 with his wife, Krista.
Yeah.
And was a big part of the real estate investment network for many years. He was speaking on stage. He was their biggest speaker for 7 years with Don Campbell. So he's trained thousands and thousands of people across Canada about real estate investing. So you're in for a real treat here today. So Jared, thank you very much and welcome to the call.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
My pleasure. So Jared, why don't you walk us through, way back when, pre-2003, what was it that sparked you to get into real estate investing in the first place?
Honestly, I get asked this all the time. And the truth is, it's my wife. I had no interest in real estate. And Krista, we went to an event put on by the Real Estate Investment Network back in 2003, October. And it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event, and it was good. Whatever. To be honest, I went there thinking it was some kind of cult or some kind of movement or some kind of fish get rich quick.
You got drug along by your wife to this thing. Right?
Yeah, I went to this seminar, right? And we were young. I'm 41 years old, and that's a long time ago, right? And so I went away for lunch, and Krista stayed to listen to Don's pitch from stage. And I came back from lunch, and she has this bag, and it says the Real Estate Investment Network on it. And I'm like, oh man, it was $200 a month. We didn't have the $200, right? And it's not like we had a ton of money to start. And so she signed us up for the 17-month commitment, which is actually $300 for the both of us. And I was right pissed off. So I went to these meetings for the first 6 months, arms crossed, hat, sit in the back of the room, hat down, just kind of, Lululemon sweats. And, I was a trainer at the time. And after 6 months, I started learning and understanding, and I'm just a real doer. So I went and bought my first property, and that year we bought 3, which is great.
Nice.
And in the second year we bought 8. And then in our third year we bought 64. Wow. And we just really exploded in our third year, which at the time I thought was super cool. Looking back on it, it was super bad because we almost went bankrupt in 2010 because of all the mistakes that we made in year 3.
Okay. So lots of learning, lots of life experience with real estate. What strategy do you focus on primarily these days? I mean, there's a million different ways to do real estate. What do you guys focus on primarily?
Yeah, I have 100 plus buy and holds. So my strategy has always been buy and hold, and I feel that's the longest. That's the best bang for your buck. That's how you become a millionaire in 15, 20 years. Right. And I look back at the properties that I bought in 2003, 4, 5. By 2005, on paper, as a multimillionaire. And I look at those properties that I have now, 15, 18 years later, like they're almost clear title now. And so that's the biggest bang for the buck, I think. In 2011, we started flipping houses, and so now it's been 6-7 years of flipping houses. I've flipped close to 100 houses. Last year we did 18 houses alone. And so now what we do is we take all of the change that we made in 2010 was to buy down debt. So we want to buy down debt, buy down of the holding properties.
Right.
So every time we flip a property, we take 50% of the profit and we take it to pay down properties now. Because in 2009, 10, when we had that global recession and I was losing 18, 19 grand a month and I couldn't pay my grocery bills but I had a Porsche 911 outside and I couldn't afford groceries. That was a real humbling experience.
Wow, that would be.
So, yeah, when we came out of that, we just decided, we got to start buying down debt. And so we increased all of our payments back, in 2010. We started increasing our payments, couldn't afford it, increased our payments to buy down our debt. Because I was always taught in real estate, buy the property, keep your payments low, increase your cash flow, and but no one ever told me what to do with that money.
Right.
No one ever said
Porsche 911s with it.
Yeah. So I went and bought a Porsche 911. I bought a trailer. I had quads. I had boats. I had all this stuff. And my only saving grace was I paid cash for it all. So come 2010, I have this $120,000 911 C4 Cabriolet convertible. And I can't afford a $178 grocery bill. And that's a true story. I couldn't do it, to the point I had to call my dad to pay that bill.
Wow. And
as I was standing in line at Safeway. And so that was my saving grace, because one, it was a humbling experience and told me I had to get my head out of my ass and fix this, or else I'm going to go bankrupt. Although I was a multimillionaire on paper, I was living literally check to check.
Yeah.
So I sold my car, sold my trailer, sold everything. And then we changed our strategy to buy down debt as fast as we possibly could. And at the time, it was really hard because, like I say, no one told me what to do with that cash flow. Everyone just said, well, live off the cash flow. Retire in 5 years. Like, that's such the biggest bullshit story I've ever heard. You can retire in 5 years off your real estate. You can't. Because if you don't plan for a downturn economy and the market drops and you haven't planned for it, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow. Very, very wise words from experience. That's the thing. We tend to remember those lessons, don't we? Those are the ones that stick, right?
Listen, man, those are tough lessons. But I'm very grateful I went through them, because when we do our coaching programs now, or we do our events now, like, those are our messages. Cash flow is great, and the theory about it, and this magical feeling that we get from it.
Thing, right?
Yeah, it's great, but what do you do with it? And no one ever teaches people what to do with it. And everyone just thinks that they're going to go replace their income, and they're going to, the truth is, you retire off your real estate, you don't live off it. That's the truth. And that is something that needs to be taught on a regular basis.
So what I'm hearing here is that you've got this portfolio of properties. Are they typically single family homes, condos? What makes
I have everything. I have single family, fourplexes, apartment buildings. I have one condo. I don't specialize in condos at all. I personally don't like condos. I tend to stay away from them. But suited family homes are the thing to buy. You get two for the price of one. You get 2 units, so if one's vacant, one's rented, I'm usually break even. If they're both rented, I'm strong cash flow. Right. And then now we're buying nothing but new. So we don't buy anything 10 to 12, 15 years old anymore, which is what I started out buying. Where now if it's not newly renovated or new, we don't touch it. And to be honest, I stay away from the new stuff because it's too small and it's boxy. And the basement suites are pretty small. Typically, they're 1-bedroom basement suites, which are really hard to rent out in Alberta.
Right.
So we tend to go to the 1950, 1960 fully renovated product, because now it has wow factor, which is very big to me, and all your long-term repairs, furnace, roof, window, stuff like that, plumbing, electrical, are already done, that nobody plans on. Nobody plans to replace a furnace, and when it shows up and you're making $100 a month cash flow, and it shows up 4 years later, there goes $7,000.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
so very smart. So you're not buying brand new, you're buying newly renovated. Somebody else has done all the work. You're buying it ready to go. Correct. And you don't have the headaches. You're good to go for 10 years probably before you have to start worrying about stuff.
Well, the way I do it, I figure I'm good for about 15 to 20 years before anything major happens. Roofs typically last 30 years. Furnaces are 25, 30 years. Nowadays, they last longer. Water tanks are 12-ish, 10 to 12, 15 years, depending on what kind of they use. So the water tank's going to be the first to go. So other than tenant wear and tear, normal damages done by tenants, I'm good, but I can factor that into the math, so I don't have to factor in the repairs and maintenance, long-term repairs and maintenance. And here's the key that most investors make. You want to talk about giving tips, little nuggets to your audience. Well, here's a nugget. The number one mistake people make in investing in real estate is they keep the property too long. And so they buy a property and they think it's their own personal house. They have to keep this thing for 25 years and they're going to pay it down. They're going to do 25, 30 grand. That's the biggest mistake I've seen people make. When the truth is, I'm not saying don't keep it for 25 years. I'm just saying have a plan at year number 8 to reevaluate the property. Because after year number 8, you should have $80,000 to $100,000 of mortgage buy down, which you could take your money out, take the buy down out, no appreciation, and now you can take that money and go buy 2 properties. You can actually double your portfolio in year number 8. Also, if you sell the property in year number 8, it still has wow factor. The roof is new, the furnace is new, all those big expenses are there's still life in them, which means the next buyer they're not gonna hammer you on purchase price. So it still has a lot of value to the next purchaser. So year number 8 is when every single house needs to be reevaluated.
That's, that's very, very good advice. You're the first guy I've heard give that advice specifically. So yeah, everybody else, especially buy and hold, it's never get rid of it. But
totally, but in year number 8, you can sit there and say, yeah, this house is still cash flowing. The area is really good. My tenants have been there for 5-6 years, whatever it is. Market's gone up. I'm going to keep it another 8 years. Great, keep it another 8 years. But if you keep it another 8 years, now you have to change your math a little bit. Because now you have to start factoring in some long-term repairs and maintenance that are going to start showing up.
Right.
The second mistake I see investors make over the years of talking to thousands of these of investors is they don't do their math right. So they don't factor in these long-term expenses. So all of a sudden when they show up, they're just used to cutting checks. So they don't actually factor that into the cash flow of the property. They just cut a check. Oh, I'll just cut a check. But it actually makes the house like a massively negative cash flowing house.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, well, it sounds like you've got a good amount of experience under your belt. You've gone through some serious hard times with your business. You've come out the other side. You're much stronger for it. And being part of REIN, you've helped and talked with thousands of people. Now you're doing your own thing. So we were talking a little bit before we started recording about, how you're helping people with your coaching and whatnot. So because there's lots of different real estate coaches out there, and you're aware of that. What do you think that makes what you do a little bit different than the norm is?
That's an easy one.
This is making a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, that's an easy one. I do it.
Yeah.
Like I see so many people that are coaches, and it's funny. This is a small business, and so when you see someone advertising on social media and they're a coach and they're doing this, a lot of times I know their backstory. And, you got to understand, like, we all have hidden agendas, okay? We all have an agenda. We all want to make money. We all want to serve a purpose for us. So you got to be careful with finding coaches, because everyone's a coach. And that's that word's actually getting so drawn out that it actually has no purpose or value or meaning to it. The big difference with me, and this is my only sales pitch I have, is I'm physically playing the game. Like, I'm not one of these guys on stage who's talking about doing it a certain way and they haven't bought a property in 15 years. Because how you bought a property in 15 years ago and how you buy it today are totally different.
Right.
And how you do math today from 15 years ago is totally different. Types of properties that are working 15 years ago today are totally different. So if you're following people that have done it 15 years ago, it's tough, right? So the biggest thing with me is I'm physically doing it. So all of our students, I take 12 students at a time, and this is a plug for me, just so we're clear. We take 12 students at a time on an 8-month journey. And we condense everything that I've learned in my 18, 19 years into 8 months. And when they go buy a property, I'm there with them. They use my team. They use my agents. They use my mortgage broker. They use my lawyers, accountants, inspectors. I have the team that they don't have to go recreate. And obviously, if they invest in Edmonton, it's a lot easier because my team is in Edmonton. But they don't have to. I got a client from Cabo San Lucas. I got 2 from Vancouver. I got 1 from Toronto. I got 7 from Edmonton. So my coaching is more of a let's go do it versus here's how you do it.
Yeah. No,
here's the theory. Here's the practical. I'm the plumber in the trenches every single day. So I'm going to go teach you how to be a plumber.
One of my pet peeves about coaches these days, now that we're on that tangent, is well, you get the big companies that roll through town and they sell you into a $40,000 coaching program, but it's not the guy that's coaching you. It's some employee they've got that they're paying $15, $20 an hour, who may or may not have ever done a real estate transaction. Chances are, if they're working for $15 or $20 an hour, they're not actively doing it, or they wouldn't be doing that job, right? So,
all honesty on this rant, I agree with you 1,000%, and it's actually pretty easy to market against that, because, and no offense to anybody who runs these groups or these programs, they have their business model and they have their approach on doing things. So they take their members and make them coaches, and then they go off and sell these coaching programs or whatever they're doing, or they sell a $40,000 coaching program. The reality is this: it's like years ago I sat down with a financial planner. Years ago, and I'm a multimillionaire at this point on paper. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I sit down with a financial planner, and he's like, we're going to make you this. We're going to have this, and in 20 years you're going to have that. And I'm like, that's awesome. Show me your portfolio.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I'm at work on doing it. Well, if you haven't done it yourself, you can't teach me how to do it. Mm-hmm. And it all goes back to the statement I made a few minutes ago, is buying real estate 15 years ago and buying it today are different. And you can go take lessons from someone 15 years ago and not have the same success and the same results as they did versus following someone who's actively playing the game today. If you're picking a coach, make sure they've gone through at least 2 downturns. Make sure they have well over 50, 60 properties. Make sure they have tight systems and a staff. And make sure you're dealing with that person versus their team.
Exactly. Well said.
That would be my advice.
We just got a couple of minutes here, Jared, before we wrap up. So, you've been coaching a lot of people. What is one, somebody's listening to this, what is one thing that they could actually go out and do that you would suggest would actually make an impact on their portfolio or them getting started, besides hiring a good coach? What's an action that they could do?
Yeah, well, first of all, don't talk to anybody about it. Don't talk to your parents or your friends and family, because a lot of them are going to, poo-poo on you, right, for having this dream of getting into real estate. And then they'll fill you up with all these horror stories. Yeah. The horror stories do exist because poor systems were implemented. That's the only reason why there's horror stories. And, so the number one thing I would do is go read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I would go, that was the number one book that I read. Don Campbell has a great book, Real Estate Investing in Canada, another excellent book. I would start with that. I would be careful with big groups. And because once again, if you go, there's a lot of theory being taught in them, and there's lots of them. I'd also be careful with groups coming into your city from other places, because they don't necessarily understand the demographics of the area. The most important thing I would do is I would go find someone to follow, and pay them to do it. Like, the mistake people make is they want something for nothing. And if you're getting something for nothing, you're only getting a little taste of it, which means there's lots not being said, which opens up the door for a mistake that can cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Makes sense. All right, Jared. So if people are interested in finding out more about you, do you have a website? Do you have like a special report or a book or something?
Yeah, no, I have, you can follow me on YouTube, Jared Hope. You can follow me on Facebook. My company is called Tilt Property Group. I'm on Instagram, which is the Jared Hope. I don't do a lot of stuff on Instagram. Facebook is a big thing for me. The best thing to do is just follow us on Facebook, because we put all our events on there. And we put all of our, topics on there, deals on there. Everything's up there. So Facebook's probably the biggest thing. Tilt Property Group. And our website, www.tiltgroup.ca.
Awesome. Jared, this has been great. Thank you very much for the tips. And again, that whole really reevaluate the property after 8 years, that's a golden nugget right there, my friend. That's a writer downer, that's for sure. Really enjoyed today's conversation with you, and hopefully we can have you back sometime in the future.
Yeah, anytime, man.
It goes fast, man.
Anytime. I know time flies. So anytime you need me, let me know.
Thanks very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mom.
Well, thanks very much for checking out the Property Profits podcast. If you like what we're doing here, please head on over to iTunes, subscribe, rate us, and leave us a review. Be very, very much appreciated. And if you're looking to create a regular flow of inbound investor inquiries about your real estate deals, then I invite you to attend one of my upcoming live online demonstrations. And you can check that out at investorattractiondemo.com. Take care.